Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was no China. There were a bunch of various states, each with their own ambitions and goals, and that's it. But one of these states, just one, rose above all the others, and the world changed forever. They were the Qin, and they were the first who united China and gave it its name. And after them came the Han, and their impact laid the foundations of the Chinese nation. This episode we're going to talk about the two dynasties that created China. Hi, my name is Sebastian. This is History in 7 Facts. China's emergence from the Bronze Age was marked by the fall of the Han Dynasty, a ruling family that's considered the first in recorded history. Yes, there were other dynasties before them, but the Shang were the first to be firmly supported by archaeological evidence. Anyway, they were replaced by the Zhou, the last pre-imperial ruling dynasty. From 1027 BC, the Zhou ruled, and they continued to do so for nearly 800 years, until 256 BC, which is the longest period of any other Chinese dynasty. During their rule, bronze was widely used, but ironworking was also introduced. It was also the period when major Chinese philosophies emerged, like Confucianism, and a system of governance that resembled European feudalism from the Middle Ages 1,000 years later. While their rule was long, they never controlled everything. In fact, in 481 BC, their kingdom disintegrated into several independent states, who immediately started to quarrel. This was the start of the Warring States period, and as the name suggests, it was a time when local military leaders conquered each other to consolidate, expand, or just simply keep power. One of the territories that survived this bloody period was the Qin State. It was located west of the Zhou territory in the Yellow River Valley, so far west that people said its inhabitants had the same customs as the non-Chinese Rong and Di populations, who were considered barbaric and uncivilized. But that Qin state managed to keep it together, and in 316 BC, they launched a series of campaigns against the other warring states. For almost a century, the Qin fought and conquered, until finally, in 221 BC, the king of Qin defeated the last remaining state and proclaimed himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. Later Confucian historians described Qin Shi Huang as a ruthless megalomaniac, a reputation based on two well-known facts from his reign. The first was a good old-fashioned book burning. Qin Shi Huang ordered the burning of many classical texts used by state officials to argue against his decisions. The second decision was the alleged burying alive of 460 scholars who disagreed with him. Talk about marking your territory. Anyway, regardless of his flaws as a ruler, the achievements of the man who first united China cannot be underestimated. So let's talk about some of them. In 356 BC, the seeds of Qin legalism were laid. At the time, Shang Yang was the prime minister of the kingdom, and he was a fervent proponent of legalist ideas. He disliked Confucian principles like filial piety or royal benevolence. Filial piety is a Confucian concept derived from Chinese culture, which advocates a set of moral norms, values, and practices of respect and caring for one's parents, while benevolence, or humaneness, is an essence of a human being, thus requiring even a leader to uphold righteousness and have the moral disposition to do good. Instead of such principles, legalists like Shang Yang argued that the interests of the state were more important than individual interests. Rulers should enforce strict laws and punishments, and the use of war as a political tool was acceptable. Under Shang, all adult males in Qin were registered for military service. Such principles ruled the Qin state when it became the ruler of all the warring states. And given legalism's emphasis on the infallibility of the state leader, it is not surprising that the first emperor was a proponent of this doctrine. Qin Shi Huang's prime minister was Li Si, and his legalist reforms introduced some measures that are still in effect today, more than 2,000 years later. These measures included the abolition of feudal fiefs, standardization of writing, the implementation of a strict legal code, the establishment of official measures for weight and length, the issue of a unified currency, and even the regulation of road widths. Although the Chinese Empire had already been created through the conquest of the warring states, this wasn't the end of the conquests. The newly Imperial Qin Dynasty continued its expansion southward. Expeditions were sent to the present-day Guangdong region on the southern coast of China, which marked the establishment of the first Chinese colonies. After a campaign against the steppe peoples in the north, the emperor ordered General Meng Tian to build a large wall to secure control over the Ordos region in Inner Mongolia and to repel further incursions from nomads on the steppe. And thus, the first phase of China's Great Wall was born, later reconstructed during the Ming Dynasty. That same general also built the Straight Road, an 800-kilometer road that connected the capital Xiangyang to the Ordos region to facilitate troop movement. Let's see, what else? Yes. In addition to construction projects aimed at strengthening China's defense system, Qin Shi Huang also commissioned many public constructions such as palaces, bridges, and canals to strengthen imperial authority in China. One of those projects ended up becoming one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. What am I talking about? Well, as the emperor aged, he became increasingly obsessed with finding the secret of immortality. This soon became an obsession, and it ultimately led to the realization of Qin Shi Huang's most ambitious project, his own mausoleum, whose construction began in 212 BC. According to a description made a century later by the great historian Sima Qian, the tomb contained a model of the empire with mercury rivers and a mechanism to simulate tides, guarded by traps that would be triggered by intruders and kill them after the tomb was sealed. Not far from the burial chamber, which by the way has not yet been unearthed, was the mighty and awe-inspiring terracotta army, a legion of life-size terracotta soldiers created to protect the first emperor in the afterlife. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC during an expedition to the eastern part of China organized to search for the mythical Penglai Island, believed to be the residence of the immortals. His body was laid inside his mighty mausoleum, where, as far as we know, it remains to this day. Once the emperor was gone, his dynasty soon began to fall apart. Qin Shi Huang's son succeeded to the throne, but he was never as effective a ruler as his father. In fact, he ended up being forced to commit suicide by his own prime minister after just 2 years. China descended into civil disorder, and much of what Qin Shi Huang had achieved was quickly lost. The palace archives were burned, and much of the evidence of the Qin period had been destroyed. Revolts and uprisings ultimately led to the collapse of the Qin dynasty less than 20 years after its establishment. The influence of the first emperor, though, was felt for many centuries. Now, the belief in a unified China came forth and persisted into the modern era. And who took over Qin's empire? None other than the mighty Han Dynasty, a ruling family whose reign would last for 400 years and whose impact would be so great that to this day, ethnic Chinese people designate themselves as Han. The Han Dynasty was founded by Liu Bang in 202 BC. It took over what remained of the Qin Empire and created a strong centralized state with a highly efficient civil administration. Their way of ruling served as a model for Chinese emperors for the next 2 millennia. Liu Bang took the title of Huangdi, or Sovereign Emperor, and named his new dynasty Han. Liu Bang ruled until 195 BC, and during his reign many elements of the Chinese imperial system emerged. Gaozu, as he was also known, embodied the principle that a person born into a peasant family but endowed with exceptional virtues could become emperor. This was the famous mandate of heaven put into practice, which states that heaven bestows its mandate on a just ruler regardless of his background. If he becomes unworthy and is overthrown, that means he lost his heavenly mandate to rule. Liu Bang began his reign by announcing an amnesty and implementing measures to restore peace. In the west and in the area around his new capital, Chang'an, Gaozu continued the practices of the Qin dynasty by ruling directly through commanderies or districts governed by appointed governors from the center. However, in the east and south, he initially accepted the existence of 10 kingdoms whose rulers declared themselves his subjects. Later, though, he replaced them too with members of his own family. Within the commanderies, Gaozu rewarded high officials, military commanders, and leaders of non-Chinese groups who submitted to him by granting them the title of Marquis. This title allowed them to collect taxes for the state while also keeping a portion for themselves. Gaozu organized and formalized the bureaucratic governance system introduced during the Qin Dynasty. The emperor was assisted by 3 superior officials, supported by 9 ministers, each responsible for a well-defined domain. Gaozu despised the nobility, but recognized the importance of Confucian ideals such as education and public service. In 196 BC, he issued an edict regarding the recruitment of qualified individuals into the imperial administration. The 6th Han Emperor, Wudi, further advanced this process. In 124 BC, he established an imperial academy where 50 students studied the classics to take an examination. Those who passed became eligible for official positions. In the same year, the most famous social ascent in Chinese history occurred when Gongsun Kong, a former butcher, was appointed chancellor. These bureaucratic measures might seem boring and familiar to us, but do keep in mind that we're talking about a period from 2,000 years ago. A merit-based, highly structured public administration was revolutionary. Emperor Wudi's rule lasted until 87 BC, and during his 54 years long reign, China gained significant territories. However, the emperor's primary concern was to protect the northern frontier of the empire against the invasion of the Xiongnu tribes, a confederation of nomadic steppe peoples originating from Mongolia. He was right to be wary of them because previously, in 166 BC, the Xiongnu penetrated as far as 160 kilometers from Chang'an. To counter their menace, in 138 BC, Wudi sent an envoy, Zhang Qian, to contact the Yuezhi, traditional enemies of the Xiongnu tribes, in hopes of forming an alliance. Although Zhang Qian failed to secure their assistance, his journey expanded Chinese influence into the western regions, present-day Xinjiang Uyghur. This led to the establishment of trade connections with Persia and the beginning of the famous Silk Road. Aside from such resounding accomplishments, Emperor Wudi also acquired lots of new territories. By 108 BC, he established 4 commanderies in northern Korea, meanwhile also expanding south to Gwangju, Guangdong, and Guangxi, as well as northern Vietnam. All these military campaigns required funds, so Wudi decided to increase tax revenues by imposing a state monopoly on salt and iron, sparking a complex debate about the extent to which the government should intervene in the economy, a debate that's all too well familiar to us even in present times. Wudi's prosperous reign ended sadly and ironically resembled the final years of Qin. The emperor became obsessed with the search for immortality, seeking the help of many prominent alchemists of the time. After his death, his dynasty entered a period of decline, during which Han emperors showed weakness, and the eunuchs at the court wielded excessive power. And I do mean excessive, Game of Thrones style. One of the main duties of the eunuchs was to take care of the emperor's numerous concubines. Any son born to these concubines could be chosen as the successor. This of course led to palace intrigues and plots, with eunuchs playing an increasingly important role. Meanwhile, the economy suffered due to poor financial management, and tax evasion became widespread. Another blow came from the massive flooding of the Yellow River in the early years of the 1st century AD, causing the river to change its course to the south. This was the last thing the empire needed, and it showed. In 9 AD, Wang Mang, regent for a series of child emperors, usurped the throne. He ordered the redistribution of large private estates, but was killed in 23 AD. This wasn't the end of the Han Dynasty though, but rather a small break. In 25 AD, Guangwu restored the Han Dynasty and became emperor. He transferred the capital to Luoyang, thus marking a new era. At one point, that city became the most populous in the world. His reign was a period of scientific and technological progress, with major inventions such as the paper and the seismograph. In its final years, the Han court was weakened by factional struggles, and China was threatened by the Xianbei, a new alliance of nomadic steppe tribes. Rebellions erupted, and the Han generals, including the renowned Cao Cao, fought for power. In 210 AD, Cao Cao died, and the Han were no more. Their dynasty ruled China for over 400 years, minus the brief reign of Wang Mang, and that's longer than any subsequent dynasty. Under them, the administrative structure was rebuilt and maintained by many future Chinese sovereigns. The collapse of the Han Dynasty was followed by a period of division between the north and the south. The north, initially divided into the 16 kingdoms, was later dominated by the Northern Wei dynasty, while in the south there were successive 6 dynasties with their capital in Jiangkang, today's Nanjing. In 589 AD, China was again reunited by the Sui dynasty and then by the Tang dynasty, which ushered in a new period of stability. During the Tang dynasty, long-distance trade between China and the Middle East flourished along the Silk Road, especially with the newly formed Islamic Caliphate, but that's a story for another time. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. I do hope to see you next time. Bye.